Okay, hello everybody. Today is April 24th, 2025, and this is Soundview Community Media. We're having a podcast today. We're continuing a conversation, and my name is John Ike. I am the executive director here at Soundview Community Media. We are a nonprofit corporation serving 6 communities in the area for public access television, and today, again, I have a guest, Mr. Craig Gordon, who is are you the executive director or what is your official title?
Founder, director, chief cook, and bottle washer.
Okay, and his organization is NEED, which is, what does the acronym stand for again?
That stands for Nutrition and Exercise versus Addiction and Disease.
Okay, okay. So generally, you're concerned with the public health arena and just what people are responsible for their own health. I mean, a lot of people go to the doctor and they just say, "Hey doc, give me a pill, make me better," but that's not really the best way to go all the time. And so you're educating people on how they can take a more active role in starting out in life healthy too. I mean, your nonprofit, you educate school children, get them when they're young to know, how to maintain a healthy lifestyle. And then it's a lot easier to communicate that when the kids are starting young, right?
Younger the better. It's a uphill challenge with what is available for food. And the people we want to help the most are usually more distant from the whole issue. And that causes a long list of issues, problems, and behaviors and isms. And we think that's all normal. And it doesn't have to be that way.
Right.
We can be a lot healthier, happier, more responsible, and live a longer, better quality life. And God forbid we find our purpose in what we really want to do and where we want to go.
Right.
There's more to life than just kind of basically paying your bills and doing little stuff. We could do big stuff if we tried.
Right.
We could make dreams happen. We could do all sorts of interesting things.
Now, tell me about, give me for instance, like we have a K through 6 school. How would you go about introducing, young kids into, a healthy lifestyle, I guess?
Well, it's about substituting more healthy products for more processed products.
Yeah.
And eliminating scads of sugar and refined carbohydrates that wind up kind of weaseling their way into your diet.
Right.
Because you're stuck in certain places at certain times. You're hungry, you're thirsty, and this is what's offered, and here you go.
Right.
And go, okay. And what we really need is nutritional density and hydration.
Okay.
So, water is your best friend, and we should drink lots of water and be grateful.
Yeah.
50% of all kids and probably adults are dehydrated. I might be one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And 25% of all children never drink water. And that's a disaster. And that's another really powerful negative form of malnutrition.
Yeah. I've always drank a lot of water throughout my life. I mean, I had a summer job where I was outside all day long, and it was essential that you drank a lot of water. Why aren't the kids drinking water? I mean, what is that about? Is it because Coca-Cola is such an easy alternative and it's got a lot of sugar in it, or?
Well, I call it Coca-Cola for one, or I call it soda. And do you think it affects your brain? It absolutely does. And is it addictive? Oh, yeah. So you have something like a Coke at 3 o'clock in the afternoon today, guess what you're going to want tomorrow?
Right.
So the more you drink it, the more you become addicted to it.
Yeah.
The more you consume it, the more it has an effect on your body and your brain.
How about coffee? Because, I mean, Starbucks and places like that, Dunkin' Donuts, I mean, they're always busy.
Well, they are, and that's just another addiction and a false sense of energy or false source of energy. And, all that caffeine is powerful stuff.
Right.
You can't buy straight caffeine.
Right.
You couldn't buy a little bottle of it because if you had, like a thimble full of it, it'd make your heart explode.
Right.
It's powerful.
Yeah.
And
it is a narcotic, isn't it?
it's a very, very, it's a stimulant. And it's powerful.
Yeah.
And so, that and nicotine, and you couldn't get straight nicotine.
Yeah.
So, it just
Is it because
it's
these
dangerous.
things stimulate a pleasure center in the brain or something like that? Why do people get hooked? I mean, first of all, caffeine's not illegal, so there's no restrictions against it. But
well, that's because of big business. Big business is busy selling
so they gear
addictive substances so that you just can't get enough of it and you keep buying it.
right.
So it's this cycle of addiction that starts at an early age. And, then you keep substituting it with a little bit more.
Right.
It's addictive. We want that little rush. We want that feeling.
So here's a good question for you. There's always guidelines like I don't know, AMA or CDC or somebody's talking
the
about
dietary guidelines?
Yeah, like
Okay.
1 to 2 cups of coffee a day for a person between the ages of such and such is acceptable. Is it really though? They do it for alcohol. They do it for. They don't do it for cigarettes because one cigarette is not good for you.
Sugarettes, remember?
Yeah,
We call them sugarettes.
but how accurate are those figures?
Well, the 2020 group that was assembled to put together the 2025 guidelines, apparently upwards of, I guess it was 20 nutrition elites in Washington that put these things together. 19 out of 20 had demonstrable conflicts of interest. So are we getting the truth? I doubt it. It's almost thank God for Robert F. Kennedy to be the watchdog and to call him on it and to say, hey, we need some real answers, some truth, some verifications. It's not just all this corruption from big food, beverage, and pharma.
Yeah.
And who pays for this? The entire public gagging up mountains of money.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're getting short-sheeted on what they're buying.
Yeah.
And then they're getting poisoned by all the chemicals in the processing.
Yeah.
And this is thousands and thousands of additives and pesticides and this, that, and the other thing that they put in the food supply.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned Robert F. Kennedy because they just banned like a bunch of dyes. And that's been in the news lately, and it's a good thing. I remember like red dye when I was a kid. They banned red dye number 5 or something like that.
Blue dye, red. You shouldn't even put that in your hair, let alone your body.
Right.
And people and kids just don't seem to have any idea that your skin absorbs it, let alone when you put it in your mouth.
Yeah.
And you're in trouble, and you don't know it.
And is it a cumulative effect? When you have. Like, say you eat candy every day that has red dye in it. Is that build up in your system day after day?
Well, it
or
has
does
to.
It flush out.
It has to. It gets lodged in your fat cells. It does a variety of different things to you, and then it's in your blood. And your blood's got to have, it's either got good stuff or bad stuff or in between.
Yeah.
So, what are you going to do?
Right.
Your body is the great scorekeeper. It remembers all the good and bad on a cellular level.
Yeah.
This isn't rocket science.
Right.
This is simple, academic, basic 2 plus 2. So
So, getting back to Robert Kennedy, I mean, he's a little bit controversial, but I think he's doing a pretty decent job because, I mean, these things have been in our system for a long time, and nobody's ever, they haven't really done anything about it. He's making a lot of changes, but he comes against this sort of. I don't know what it is, but the media paints him as if he's a little bit. Maybe it has something to do with the vaccine positions he had in the past, but and maybe it's because he was appointed by Trump, who pretty much half the country hates. But it's just like they're treating him. The media is not treating him fairly, I believe. But what is your thought about his general approach to what he's doing? And what he plans to do in the near future.
I'm hoping and praying he gets a lot of support, that we finally get out in front of some of these obvious insults that big food and beverage are throwing at the public, and particularly the kids, and reducing the god-awful amount of varieties of sweeteners that they put in the food supply, and particularly the beverages. And we start to pay attention to this stuff instead of completely ignore it or think, oh, that's someone else's business. Oh, it's an occasion. Oh, it's there's, somebody has a birthday party. Somebody got a new job. Somebody got this. Somebody got that. Junior got straight A's. Let's go down to Dairy Queen. Mm-hmm. These places are mobbed. All these different things represent what I call vacations and distractions from not feeling good. Mm-hmm. So if your attention is fixated on sugar, salt, fat, and different things that are typical in the fast food treats and desserts and so forth, then you don't think you have a care in the world. Mm-hmm. And there's so much money involved in this. So, everybody says follow the money. So I have a $100 bill here. Okay? Now here I have a penny. A penny represents 1 basis point of the $100 bill. So if big food, beverage, and pharma are grossing $3 trillion, and the $3 trillion is a $100 bill, how much do you think the penny is worth? 1/10,000th of the $3 trillion. Mm-hmm. The number happens to be $300 million. Mm-hmm.
What number is that?
Well, that's a 1/10,000th of $3 trillion. To give you some scope and scale on how much money big food, beverage, and pharma gross per year.
$3 trillion?
$3 trillion.
Wow.
To feed this malnourished, gluttonous country.
Yeah.
And then we are making ourselves sick by consuming all this garbage.
Yeah.
And then you go to your doctor, doctor, I have depression, I have this, I have that. Oh, we got a pill for you. No problem. Don't forget to come in next week. I'll write you a prescription. You can have your Zoloft and your antidepressants and your benzos and your this and that. And then all of a sudden, you've got anxiety. Mm-hmm. You've got irritability. You can't sleep.
Right.
You have suicidal tendencies.
Depression, yeah.
And, so you're playing whack-a-mole with all these different symptoms.
Yeah, it's crazy. There's
side effects, pardon me.
There's a drug commercial for this thing. It's a pill for depression when your depression pill doesn't work.
Right.
So they're going to give you a second. That's the first one is unable to do it, but they don't want to get you off the first one. We'll give you a second one.
Well, they're making a ton of money. Then all these psychiatrists are treating the symptoms of malnutrition and hypoglycemia with all these drugs. Mm-hmm. So they're just making things worse usually.
Okay.
Not all the time, but usually. And initially, all these psych drugs
Psychotropic drugs. Yeah.
Well, psychotropic, but no, these are shrink drugs. Like
Okay.
people that have mental issues,
Right.
and they want to basically medicate it away.
All right.
So here's your psychological drugs, and so then you've got 5 more symptoms that you have to deal with, side effects, and those aren't just side effects; they're main effects.
Yeah.
They're kicking your tail around the room.
Yeah.
You don't realize it. They're affecting you. And maybe your depression is a little less obvious, but then you got 6 other things to deal with.
Yeah.
And, and this is a lot of money.
I know. A friend of mine went on a drug to stop smoking cigarettes.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was called Chantix or something like
That's
that.
right. That's one of them.
And he had to get off of it because he said he felt like he wanted to jump off a bridge. It's
Well,
like,
it's
okay.
right. Minor detail. I mean, if you look at all the commercials on television, and they're in a park and they're at a barbecue and they're
Yeah.
having a great time with their grandkids. Meanwhile, they list and talk about all the side effects.
Right.
And so if you saw that commercial, they're right then and there holding themselves harmless for all the different issues that come
Right.
up taking these drugs.
Yeah.
Then there's, your doctor and the pharmacist make you sign off on certain drugs.
Right.
Initial this, sign that, you got this, did you read that, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And so there's another sign off to hold them harmless from a lawsuit.
Right. Right. Right.
Then in almost all of those medications, you've got a 12-week max you're supposed to be on them.
Yeah.
And 5 years later and 10 years later and 20 years later, people can't get off the psych drugs.
Right.
Particularly the benzos, the benzodiazeprines and all these different,
Well,
so
those are
forth.
highly addictive.
They're highly addictive, and they take longer to get off than heroin.
Yeah.
They're rough.
Yeah.
And so, do you want to get involved in trade Peter to pay Paul? Or it's like, maybe not.
Yeah. It's the side effects are worse than the actual, the main condition. a
So
lot of
now
times.
we have something called nutritional psychiatry.
That sounds interesting. Before you tell me about that,
Mm.
somebody has asked, where can we find this information? Do you have a website? Do you have some place
My
they can go to?
website's not up right now. You can call me at 203-981-3222,
Okay.
and I'd be happy to talk to you about it.
Okay.
And there's so much we can do with health and nutrition and supplements and exercise and so forth every day to be a little healthier, a little happier,
Yeah.
and take care of ourselves and do a preemptive strike on the depression, the anxiety, the nervousness, the worrying, and the insomnia, the exhaustion, the depression. There's a lot of things we could do. We don't have to just suffer from hypoglycemia and malnutrition. It's a big deal.
Yeah. Good point.
So there's all these different opportunities we are neglecting to be participatory
Yeah.
in our own health.
Yeah.
That's all. We can eliminate the obvious insults. We can pick up some good habits. We can, look at the labels. We could be, getting out for at least a walk or two a day where you walk at a decent pace. My prescription is 2 walks a day, 1 in the morning, 1 at night, like you're late for the train for 20 minutes. That's all. Just
Yeah.
get 20 minutes of oxygen.
Mhm.
Stretch your legs. Your legs are your second heart.
Right.
They're big pumps. So you work your legs, go at a decent pace. That's a huge deal for your body and
Yeah.
your brain.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially as you get older, because the tendency is when you get older to not to be as active, and you got to stay active because you got to keep the heart pumping.
Well, a good example, even your dog. You say you're going out, the dog's tail's going wah, 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 wah,
Right.
crazy.
Yeah.
And the dog's really happy to get out and stretch and get some air,
Right.
get some exercise. So why aren't we like that if we got out and did more exercise, more
Right.
walking, swimming, pickleball, tennis, anything.
Yeah.
Who shoot some hoops.
Well, the wintertime, it's hard, especially a lot of retirees, they don't even want to leave the house, and if you don't have a gym or something in your house, you're just sitting there watching TV or reading a book, or, you're not, it's hard to stay active for the,
Well, it is and it isn't. I mean, there's malls that we can walk in. I walked outdoor all winter long, and I was in shorts 99% of the time. I put boots on. I covered up my upper body with windbreakers and sweaters and sweatshirts and all that and hats. And I was walking all winter long.
uh-huh.
I've got an average of 10,000 steps a day, roughly, since the beginning of this year.
That's good.
That's a big deal. I have to walk the walk and
Yeah.
be responsible
Yeah.
and be an example.
Yeah, that's a goal of mine, is 10,000, and it's hard to make it.
Even if you
because-
did 5
Right,
every day,
right.
that's your average.
Right.
And God forbid you did it at a decent pace. Then you're getting some cardio.
So, tell me about your experience with, public funding or public programs that might be available there seems like government doesn't put a lot of funding into this type of education. It seems to go more into, the big thing now is STEM. It gets a bulk of the funding. Why don't they put more funding into health education?
Well, for one thing, it's hard to measure. Okay, so everybody's looking for data if they want to scale things up for different programs. So where's the data? And it's difficult to measure prevention.
Mm-hmm.
I have a program where I have measurable prevention workbooks.
Mm-hmm.
And I can measure prevention. I can promote prevention. I can say, hey, drink more water and less soda, and it'll show up in your body, in your blood work. It'll show up in your behavior. It'll show up around your waist, good or bad.
Excuse me, someone asked, do you believe they should put caffeinated in different products that don't need to have them? As someone said.
Absolutely not, because caffeine is a powerful stimulant.
There's caffeine in
And-
chocolate. Now, is that naturally
little bit.
occurring? Yeah.
And I have chocolate, but it's dark chocolate with minimal sugar in it, and I just have a little piece, one little piece.
Yeah.
And that's fine. I have one every other day, and then I've had oranges lately, a fair amount. I had one on the way over here.
Mm-hmm. So orange has a lot of sugar in it. So
Well, the oranges I buy purposely. They're called Cara oranges,
right.
and they're
Yeah,
not
those.
as sweet as some of the
Oh,
the
really?
sweet ones.
That's
So
good
I
to know.
try to wean myself and my palate, and that's what everybody should do, is wean their palates away from sweet.
Okay. So obviously, an orange isn't as processed as a chocolate bar, but I think that's one of the big problems is the ultra processing that goes into the foods today. Wouldn't you agree that, if you want to be healthy, vegetables, which are, in their natural state as opposed to frozen or
Well,
canned or
How it works is our body desperately needs fiber. So if we eat an apple or an orange compared to drink apple or orange juice, it's completely different. It's a net carbohydrate. If you get a bunch of fiber, like I'll eat green apples and less sweet oranges, and then you have the fiber, and the fiber slows down the absorption, so your blood glucose doesn't go up like a rifle. It goes up a little bit more slowly, and it comes down a little bit more slowly. So goes your chemistry, your blood glucose, so goes your brain.
Mm.
Instead of, hyper depressed, hurry up, wait, happy, sad, where people are flying up and down the flagpole,
Mm-hmm.
they don't have to if they eat more carefully and consciously.
We're getting some really good questions today on our chat. Somebody's asking, how do you make working out fun? Because for me, it's a struggle. How do you do it, or what can you suggest people?
Well,
do?
everybody should be playing some kind of a sport if they are able. I picked up pickleball lately,
Mm-hmm.
and I really enjoy playing that. I've always played racket sports all my life, so it was very easy for me.
Yeah,
But there's beginner groups. There's people that teach it.
it's kind of like
And so-
tennis, right?
It is kind of like this. You got a little net, got a little paddle.
Uh-huh.
You got what's a heavy wiffle ball, and it bounces, and there's rules, and you follow the rules, and it's got to go over the net, and it
Yeah.
requires finesse and some talent and so forth, and it's fun.
I've seen a couple TikTok videos of pickleball. It can be quite competitive too.
Oh yeah, no,
Fights on the pickleball court.
it's an interesting sport.
Yeah.
So any kind of racket sport. I was state badminton champion when I was 13
Really?
and 18 in the state of Connecticut. And I love badminton. And indoors on a court with lines and rules, it's
Yeah.
a completely different deal.
Yeah.
It was very physically demanding.
Yeah.
It's very fast. And so
you have to have really good reflexes for that game.
you need it to, you got that and a lot of energy and effort.
Yeah.
Everything requires effort.
Yeah.
But if you take care of your body, you've got the effort available. You've got the energy available.
Yeah.
It's not that hard. If you don't, then you're stealing from Peter to pay Paul.
Yeah.
You need the caffeine. You need the sugar.
Yeah.
You need this and that. You don't want that stuff if you don't have to have it. So why not get started? And this isn't overnight. Slowly wean yourself away from what I call those obvious insults.
Yeah.
In recovery, this is particularly important. The coffee, the sugar, cigarettes, particularly the cigarettes and the vape, are the leading cause of death and relapse in recovery.
Yeah.
So,
I've heard of people using vaping to get off of cigarettes. Have you heard any?
my opinion after studying addiction for 46 years and vaping the last 8 or 10 is that vaping is actually worse than cigarettes.
Really?
And there's a lot of trouble with it. You do not know what you're inhaling.
Right.
It's a flavor and then other chemicals.
Right.
And it's in a vapor form which mimics oxygen. And I think it goes deeper into your lungs or through your lungs into your blood. And it causes a long list of trouble.
Yeah.
I've heard of suicides. I've heard of all sorts
Wow.
of addictions with it. Bad news.
Yeah. I've heard that.
And they think that's a stepping stone away from cigarettes, and it's not. It's just as bad or worse.
Wow. So it's just substituting one for the other.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's a false, substitute too.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you can stop smoking. Eh,
Right.
I don't think so.
Yeah. Yeah. There are a lot of different aids for stopping smoking. Like they got the patch and the gum and the lozenges and stuff like that. And, I think it's a pretty low percentage of people that actually are able to quit. With
Well, they're
those-
going to quit one way or another.
Yeah, they usually get a
But-
diagnosis, and that's the thing that.
Well, that's right. And if you have the gumption and the respect and ethics for your own body and your life,
Yeah.
if you get past 10, 15 days of smoking, you pretty much got it.
Yeah, yeah,
You change habits in anywhere from 10 to 30 days.
yeah,
And if you have the nads to do it, the respect for your own body and your life, it's worth its weight in gold.
yeah.
And then you pick up the the exercise, you pick up the healthy food, and all of a sudden things shift for you.
Mm.
And that's possible. It's not that hard. It's not impossible.
Yeah, I think like when I was a kid, everybody smoked.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like nowadays it's a lot less. So we have made some progress over the past 50 years, but I think there are still places where it's just, it's kind of like a community thing. Like you see all the cigarette smokers out on the sidewalk together. It's still, there still is a social aspect to that is probably going to last forever.
Well, it's unfortunate that, like they say, youth is wasted on the young.
Mm-hmm.
And the kids don't seem to understand how damaging and harmful the vaping and the hookahs and the cigarettes and the weed really are on their bodies, on their brains, on their lungs,
Mm-hmm.
and their systems and their futures.
Yeah.
They don't even care about their futures. They just want it right now.
Yeah. So listen, let's just take a short break,
Mhm.
and we'll be back. We'll put up some messages for people, and stay tuned. We'll be back in about a minute. You think of the future, the immediate future this year or 10 years from now? What's the future going to hold for someone in your business or your profession?
Well, I'm hoping and praying that we could actually find some leadership in this area, in this country. I think we have some in Robert F. Kennedy. I think that's just a tremendous possibility and opportunity to shift away from horrid health to decent health, which is the whole ball of wax. What does having a lot of money matter if you don't have your health? And I think that's, the public has kind of missed that. They're just their eyes are glazed over with boats and cars and jet skis and, all sorts of things while they treat their bodies like a garbage dumpster.
Yeah.
And how sad is that?
Mm.
And then they take, with the various bad habits, they take 20 years off their life, and the last 20 years suck. That's half your life.
Yeah.
And you're dealing with it and kind of looking like a Cub Scout, smoking and drinking anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And you just don't know any better. And it's no good. Why do that to your precious body? So,
Yeah. I think a lot of people are caught in the work a day loop too, because, it's gotten a little tougher ever since COVID, or it's been financially a struggle for a lot of people, and they get caught into having two jobs and working all the time. And when you're caught in that mode, it's very hard to carve out time for recreation or carve out time for cooking, or eating right,
or shopping.
It's so easy. Let me just go to McDonald's and get dinner.
They don't even do that. They just order in, and they have something
Yeah.
delivered. They have Uber Eats, and they have whatever, all those different delivery systems.
Right.
And that's expensive.
Yeah.
So you're doing your second job to have the convenience of ordering all this stuff, and when you order it, most of it's not that good for you.
Right.
Maybe a third of it is decent food, and 2/3 is either borderline or just basic bad stuff.
Yeah.
It's just an insult to your precious body. We can do better if we have a little bit of discipline, a little bit of focus. Health is important, not just eating indiscriminately like people tend to do.
Yeah. Yeah. It seems like most of the bad food is the fast food restaurants because it's all ultra processed food. I mean,
It's chemicals. It's different types of, there's something like 7,000 additives they put in the food.
right.
And it is not even required to be registered with the government, with the FDA.
Right.
So then they have something called generally recognized as safe, or GRAS, they call it.
Mm-hmm.
And some food manufacturers actually voluntarily register what they're doing, probably to hold themselves harmless. They don't do enough studies on what they're doing. They don't, have any recourse.
Yeah.
They don't have any responsibility legally. Who's going to get sued for sugar? Hopefully that's coming around the bend.
Mm.
They're going to figure out how to equate behavior and isms and liabilities and accidents and other things with you ate all that sugar all night.
Right.
And then you crashed.
Yeah.
And then you did it again. And then you couldn't pay attention. You caused an accident at your work or in a car or in a truck.
Yeah. I think a lot of people don't even know how much sugar they're consuming. You look at the package and find out, read the package, read the ingredients and find out, and they'd be shocked at actually how much sugar there is in everything. And salt, too.
Well, the statistic from 2016 was more than half, or 60% roughly, and I think it's more now, of all Americans spend more than half of their food budget on food you could buy at a gas station.
Mm.
I mean, a terrific amount of money. Yeah. Something like $250 billion that goes into gas station highly processed food, and then all the soda and all the other jive drinks that they have there. And, and all that's, you're so hungry you want to break a window, and you go hammer some garbage because it's right around the corner at the gas station.
Yeah. Here's a good question for you. How about pizza? Is pizza bad for you? Or,
well, what do you think, John?
Well, it's, first of all, you got the bread.
That's right.
Then you have the sauce, and then you have the cheese. It's a very simple 3 ingredients, but it's
those are the base
sauce.
Ingredients.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've got the bread or the flour, and everything that goes into the crust is white flour. White flour turns right into white sugar in your body.
Right.
In 20 minutes flat.
Well, if you're on a low carbohydrate diet, which is kind of popular these days, bread is no good.
No. And whole wheat is the same damn thing.
Yeah.
Even whole grain, you want to try to, do an experiment with your own body, with your diet, and just don't have grain products for a month and see how you feel. Then the next month, don't have any dairy products for a month and see how you're breathing better. See if you lost 5 pounds. See if you have a little bit more energy.
Yeah.
And these are things you do for yourself because you respect yourself, and you've never done anything like that before. So aren't you curious to see how you're going to feel if you eliminated dairy for a month? Like the pulmonologists in the area do not even tell people with asthma to get rid of the dairy product. And the dairy product creates a much thicker than need be lining of mucus in your sinuses and your lungs.
Yeah.
So you're not you're not capable of oxygen because that lining is so thick.
Why would a pulmonologist?
I have no idea, but I've met them before. I've talked to them. I've talked to some of the lead ones, and it's not part of their culture or their training to equate dairy and difficulty in breathing.
Yeah, and probably that goes to the clinical data that doctors need for everything. Like, I mean, it's always a lot of their training is based on clinical data, and what they learn in medical school is based on all these, clinical trials that were conducted, on certain medications to get them passed and things like that. And it's like, statistics say that this is effective, so here's the pill, and they're not trained in wellness. Like, you're
not even close.
You're feeling sluggish, maybe change your diet as opposed to, something else.
So for instance, I hear somebody say, well, we have a dietitian at our clinic. And I go, okay. And how well are they trained? Because oftentimes the dietitians are young women, and they're nice, they're presentable, they've got a little bit of an education, they've got a good vocabulary, and they know some of the basics on nutrition, but they don't know anything like a clinical nutritionist that has 10 years of experience and is creative with food.
Yeah.
Completely different animals.
Yes. I think there are a lot of dietary professionals on staffs at hospitals.
Sure they are.
and
Look what they
medical-
feed them.
Yeah.
Look at look.
But
at,
I mean,
look at
just
what
to educate the patient, I know that there's a lot of,
the hospitals need a lot of help.
yeah,
They don't have the budget.
right.
They don't want to pay for somebody that's
Well,
a
yeah.
clinical nutritionist
That's
creative with food. And then where do you get that food? You're not going to get it in the hospital. Not usually.
mhm.
And so, maybe there's exceptions. Maybe there's one out in California. There's one down south. And it's about nutritional density and healthy.
Yeah.
But normally, and I could be wrong,
Um,
it's not all about nutrition. It's about money.
Yeah.
It's about cheap. It's about convenient. It's about food safety
Yeah.
and food handling and what's convenient for the hospital or the entity or the business that's running the food service.
We have our engineer is chiming in here again.
Yes, the engineers chiming in. The first question is the first thing someone said was for you, John. It said, John, you can also have cauliflower crust
Sure.
on your pizza.
I've never tried cauliflower crust, but I'd be willing to give it a shot. Is it any good?
We have to see in chat later.
Do
And
they
I think
use that
Oh,
at
yeah.
pizzerias?
yeah.
It's out there.
Okay.
They said it's great. But the other question about pizza having simple ingredients, the same person asked, which is also good for pizza and vegan cheese.
Vegan cheese, yes. There's some bad vegan cheeses out there, but there's some that are pretty good. The reason why I asked that question is because we're in Connecticut, and all these politicians went down to Washington and declared Connecticut is the home of the pizza, or the number one pizza state, or something like that, which is
Yeah.
that's
Okay.
another ridiculous story. But Connecticut prides itself on its New Haven style pizza.
Pepe's.
Yeah,
Pepe's
and
and-
Sally's and Modern and Bar, and there's some great pizzas out there,
They taste good.
and they're good. I'll
taste
have
good.
a pizza maybe once a month. I'm not an everyday pizza eater, but I know there are a lot of people that live, off of pizza, and I mean,
Exist.
yeah, well, there's a lot of young kids too. When you're in your 20s, you don't think,
No.
It's not going to affect me. I got plenty of time, but it's like you said, one day, then leads into 2 days, and before you know it,
You're
you can get
craving it.
hooked
It's
on
more
yeah.
fat, salt, and sugar.
Right.
So the pizza has the crust that turns right into sugar in your body.
Right.
Then there's the sugar in the tomato sauce. And then there's the dairy, all the mozzarella that causes mucus.
Add some pepperoni to that.
Pepperoni, that's another processed thing.
Yeah.
Apparently most of the deli meat out there is classified as carcinogenic.
Uh-huh.
So you go get a deli sandwich, and unfortunately, it's been processed so much it's carcinogenic.
Yeah.
That's what they say. I'm just the messenger.
No, I know.
I'm just-
That's another thing. Deli meat I try to avoid.
And then
No.
there's the bread. So you're eating a bunch more sugar
Yeah.
with your deli meat because everybody has these fancy rolls and they taste good. And you're going, Gaga, I'm hungry. I
Yeah.
guess I'm going to eat it.
Do you know?
Someone said this. I make pizza from scratch, as I have a lot of allergies. What would you, in my opinion, what would you say to people who can't have certain type
Good
of
question.
food that are good for you, but they're allergic to it and will have a reaction to it?
Well, most of those people will know what they're allergic to. So obviously they have to steer away from that type of thing.
Right.
So I've made my own pizza before with a gluten-free crust.
Right.
And it was frozen, and I put it down, and then I'll put a little bit of olive oil. I'll put a lot of greens on it, like spinach or and then broccoli. I put onions. I put red peppers. I put sun-drieds. I put, a bunch of things on there, and it's really tasty.
Yeah.
But you're not doing all the cheese. You're not doing the sugar.
Right.
The crust is a
Right.
lot less sugar in it.
It's a lifestyle adjustment and a choice.
It's not that hard, though, because these taste great.
Yeah.
It's not like you're losing taste.
Mhm.
You're tasting something different, and you're moving your life forward.
Let me ask you this. So, vegetarianism, people do it for different reasons, but a lot of people do it for health reasons, and veganism. But I've also heard that it lacks certain B vitamins and amino acids that you get from beef or things like that, foods like that. Is that true? I mean, I don't know that much about it.
We do need a variety of amino acids and proteins to make muscle and to generate energy. I think we should be eating more eggs. I think real butter is fine. It's good fat. There's good fat and there's bad fat.
Yeah. Is margarine a bad fat?
Typically, yes.
Yeah.
Because it's processed.
And it's so funny because
And it's a seed oil.
they brought it out, they made it popular as an alternative to butter because butter was high in cholesterol. And it turns out butter is actually better for you than
We got lied to and conned by a Harvard scientist who was hired by Big Food and Big Sugar back in the 50s and 60s when Eisenhower had a heart attack, and they're wondering why did he have a heart attack. And because Big Food and Big Sugar are so powerful, they didn't want it having to do with sugar. They wanted to pin the tail on the donkey and make it cholesterol. So for the 70s and 80s and 90s and into the 2000s, it was all about low cholesterol, no cholesterol, low fat, no fat. And, all the while, they're adding more and more sugar. And all the while, we're putting on weight and we're becoming more diabetic and more sick.
Yeah.
So the fat, there's good fat, and we need good fat. And we need butter, for instance. We need fish oil.
Yeah.
We need nuts and fruits and berries and simple stuff. We can get good fat, good energy from that stuff.
I know nothing about this, but I've heard, saw this on the news or somewhere. Recently, beef tallow seems to be gaining in popularity, and I think there's a health component to that. The claim that it's a better fat or something.
Well, heating seed oils aren't good for you to begin with, let alone if you heat them up and they're rancid and they're cooked and they fry stuff for 2 days in the same oil.
Yeah.
So apparently beef tallow has better frying properties, and it's a better quality fat net.
Okay.
And and I'm kind of not surprised.
Yeah.
So it's beef fat basically.
Yeah. So there's saturated fat and unsaturated fat, right? So I remember hearing that hydrogenated oil is not good.
No, that and it's just like high fructose corn syrup.
Yeah.
So it's processed, it's heated, it's cooled, and they change the original ingredient into something else that is shelf stable and might taste different but fine, but they don't lose that product on the shelf or over time.
Yeah.
So they're trying to make a profit.
Yeah.
They don't want to take back product.
Yeah. Do you think Kennedy's going to get involved in this part of the industry? Because
He is already.
Yeah. Is he?
It's just a big endeavor,
Yeah.
huge endeavor to
Because
try to
the
change.
lobby
Yeah,
is.
this is imagine the lobby. Remember I was talking about the $100 bill,
Yeah.
and then here's the penny,
Yeah.
and the penny represents $300 million. Big Food, Beverage, and Pharma, 1 basis point. So imagine I took 10 pennies, or $3 billion, down to Washington every year. Every single senator, congressman, the lobbyist, the staffs,
Yeah.
everybody, they know exactly who's who. They don't want to vote against them.
Right.
Otherwise, they don't get their stipend.
Yeah.
They're all about getting reelected,
Yeah.
so they need all that money to get reelected. And they never vote against big food, beverage, and pharma,
Wow.
or rarely.
Yeah, and that's where things have to change. It has
Sure.
to change. The laws have to be made so that these big corporations cannot have the influence that they have.
We need to take money out of politics.
Yeah.
We need to be there
Good
for the
luck with that one.
kids. Yeah, right.
I mean, this whole situation with the electric company and the overcharging or
The
public
delivery.
benefit fee that they're charging people, and
Yeah.
who do you think caused that? You know,
Yeah.
the electric company got the permission of the politicians to do that. So, you know,
They have to.
we're being sold out in many different areas of society.
It's sad, but we can have control over our own bodies.
Exactly. Exactly.
We can do something with your body.
and that's what
Your
people
body
have
and
to-
your brain are one unit. They're not separate.
Yeah.
So,
Someone asked the same question, but I think they didn't get the answer they wanted. I'll try to elaborate what they trying to say is, imagine they go out already and try to work out and work the system, but there's a lack of motivation. How do they get that motivation to want to keep persisting to work out and be able to just enjoy what they're doing?
I would keep a food journal or diary on what they eat and what they do physically, and and weigh yourself,
Yeah.
and put a tape around where your belly button is, and do some basic measurements so you can see and measure your own progress for one.
Yeah.
So these are a big deal.
Yeah. Measuring your progress is
Yeah,
is key
measuring-
for me.
And you measure it yourself in the privacy of your own home. This isn't a contest.
Right.
This isn't a competition. This is ethics and respect for your own body and your brain at the same time, and so forth.
I find that for me, when I work out, I like to listen to music, and nowadays it's a lot easier to do that, to get ear pods and get whatever music you want, and that kind of, what happens to me is I hit that zone where, oh man, it's really hard to get started, but then once I get over that hump and I have the music to help me get over that hump, it becomes enjoyable to exercise. So
Absolutely.
the thing about the diet, I wanted to touch on this because I've found, and I've never really had a weight problem, but I found in the past that the Richard Simmons had this plan called Deal a Meal, where the size of the portions were there, the amount of calories, and it was all like you could construct your entire day, the diet for your day, and know exactly how many calories you were consuming. And it was just basically a calorie counting system.
Right.
And the fact of the matter is, you consume a certain amount of calories, but you also expend a certain amount of calories. And if you're taking in more calories than you're expending, you're going to gain weight. I mean, it's a simple math.
Well, it's that, and it's also what are you doing mentally, because you use so much energy thinking and being in a good or a bad place. So there's energy going there, then the physical energy, and then do you need all those calories from fat, salt, and sugar? Good. I should preface that. Bad fat, salt, and sugar.
Mm-hmm.
Do you need that much salt? That retains the water weight.
Yeah.
Do you need the sugar? Can you have a piece of fruit rather than a big chocolate bar? So there's a lot of different things. All just simple, basic,
Okay.
We have opportunities everywhere we go.
Yeah.
If we are willing to plan, we're willing to buy ingredients, we're willing to cook, we're willing to, take some steps to not be somewhere where you're so hungry you want to break a window and you're hammering the garbage again. Simple.
Okay, cool. So we're coming close to the end of the hour. So why don't we recap right now? Tell us, what you would like to say in closing, and put another plug in for. Well, I know your website's down, but maybe list your website and your email address and your phone number for people that want to get in touch with you. And that's,
Okay. Well, we have endless opportunities to improve our health every day. We could rearrange our schedules. We could get up a little bit earlier. We could say, hey, I've got a half an hour before work. I'm going for a walk. And try simple stuff like that. Then at night, push away from the dinner table. Try to go for a walk instead of sit down and break out the remote and sit there. So if you have some simple, basic respect and discipline for your own body, for your own life, why not? Doesn't hurt, doesn't cost money, takes a little bit of your time, and tomorrow's a better day. You have to believe in tomorrow. We need to believe we have a future. Time goes by like a missile. Before you know it, you're 30, 40, 50, 60 years old. And you go, what happened?
yeah,
And did you do what you wanted to do?
right.
And maybe you were busy, making sure you had enough Haagen-Dazs in your freezer.
Yeah,
Maybe you were sitting there on a pipe. Maybe you're sitting there smoking cigarettes or sitting at the bar.
yeah.
How well did that work? Because people can drink themselves into diabetes.
Mm-hmm.
And this is more common than houseflies.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
just take care of yourself. Simple ethics and respect.
Yeah.
Change the cycle of addiction.
Yeah.
We've seen so much addiction in America for so many years. Maybe you need to step up. Whoever's listening, whoever cares, whoever's watching, we need to be examples, and we need to take care of business.
And so how can people get in touch with you?
203-981-3222.
Okay.
And my email is Craig Gordon, CraigGordon 9395 @gmail.
Okay. And we'll put this up on the screen as well.
Okay.
And
And I appreciate you considering what I'm saying. I'm not telling you what to do.
right.
I'm not,
It's just,
mandatory
your,
suggestions. I've got 46 years in the trenches. I did work for the White House on drug abuse policy in the mid-'80s for Reagan. I know addiction cold.
Mhm.
There's very little I don't know about addiction. So we don't need to go there. We don't need to be addicted.
Yeah. Well, we'll get back together soon, and maybe next time you could bring some of your signs with some of the catchphrases on there. So because it can hammer home the points that that you're trying to make to the people, and we'll ask people. Maybe we'll do a call in next time. Have a phone here, so if people want to actually call in to ask their questions, because
Sure.
it's a little difficult on the Twitch chat because it's going through Jose, and then the topics are moving pretty quickly. So, but I want to thank everybody for tuning in. This is a Soundview Community Media podcast with Craig Gordon of Need, and I welcome you all back for the next one. And thanks for tuning in.
Thank you. Take care.